We wanna welcome you to SAZETU. The show's alive because of SAZETU.
SAZETU is brought to you by Maine Spirits. Learn more about the delicious spirits they import into the great state of Maine and the cocktails you can make with them at mainspirits.com or by downloading their app for your smartphone or visiting them on Instagram at Maine_spirits. Promotional consideration by State Theater Portland. Visit statetheaterportland.com for an up-to-date schedule of virtual events and upcoming announcements as we get closer to normalcy. And Sun Tiki Studios, a top-notch rehearsal and performance facility located on Forest Avenue in Portland, Maine. Learn more at suntikistudios.com.
Welcome to Happy Hour, brought to you by Maine Spirits. Who are Maine Spirits? Well, they bring all the liquor into the state of Maine. So you're welcome from them to you. And what I'm charged with doing is showing you how to make drinks at home with all those lovely liquors and liqueurs and spirits. This week, Natalie calls in. She has a bottle of Aperol. We've done Aperol before, but there's lots of things you can do with Aperol. Natalie was making an Aperol spritz, basically, an Aperol and soda. A very easygoing drink. That's a nice summer drink. But wants to know how to make something else. Well, I'm glad you called, because I'll show you how to make something else. First things first, what is Aperol? Aperol is a bitter Italian aperitif. Think of it as Campari's nice cousin. Just a little nicer. Just easier to get to know. You know, not as much of a wall up. Not as grumpy. So I'm going to show Natalie how to make a different drink with the Aperol, and we're going to make what I call a sour bourbon. In a shaker full of ice, please add the following: 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of Aperol, a half ounce of fresh lemon juice. Now stir that until cold. Now strain that into a martini glass and garnish it once again with a Luxardo cherry, being sure not to eat the entire jar of Luxardo cherries before you put it in the drink. Drop it in the drink and chill out. Now let's take a sip of this drink. We have made a refreshing bourbon cocktail. Usually like Manhattans are a little sippy, a little leathery, a little by the fireside, but this is a nice, chill summer drink, I think, if you want to make a nice, chill summer drink with bourbon. This has been Happy Hour, brought to you by Maine Spirits. You can learn more about this drink and many other drinks at mainspirits.com, where you can actually watch the videos based upon this audio as well on their YouTube channel. You can follow them on Instagram at Maine_spirits, or download their app for your smartphone, which is a smart move. What to buy, where to buy it, and what to do with it once you get it. But no matter what you download or where you visit them, we ask you, please, to drink deliciously and responsibly, and this week is no exception. Thanks for sitting with me while I finish my lunch.
Anytime.
It occurs to me only now that must have been like a medium terrifying like ASMR situation, considering I'm sitting in front of this giant, beautiful microphone.
Designed to pick up every rich detail of your saliva and teeth chomping through a turkey sandwich or tuna.
Yeah, tuna, yeah. Okay. Tuna wrap. Made myself a tuna wrap. Quick and dirty. We went tuna fish. Comes in cans, no bones. And, a little bit of mayonnaise, salt, pepper, and I just hacked up a bunch of Cornichon. Mm-hmm. Fired some lettuce in there. Wrapped it up. Direct deposit.
Yeah. Sounds
I more or less unhinged my jaw and ate it whole.
That's a good way to do it. I think that's generally how I eat, since I usually don't think about food until I'm like, oh, I'm hungry and I have a thing to do in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm trying to be better about it. I'm trying to I've entered into the world of having a bowl of Raisin Bran, at some point before dinner time.
Yeah.
Which is basically dinner time right now. But while I was chomping away, you asked if I had seen Loki. And whereas this is a nerdcast of sorts, yes, I finished it. And I was saying to you before I kind of put pause on it, that I had to, although the show left me with no questions, as far as yes, there are questions. It's opening up a whole can of worms, but it's like I knew where I was at, so it hadn't lost me. But I knew that I could see the chatter online, and I had spoken with Griffin, our friend Griffin, who is like definitely like a Marvel head, like into the comics and stuff like that. I had to ask him why it was so significant, and he explained. It's like, oh, well, that sounds very good then. I'm trying to like weave around this without spoiling it for anybody who hasn't finished it. But it's I enjoyed it because I as far as maybe you're the same way, Zach. Like as far as Marvel's concerned, I'm a fan of the MCU. I'm not a fan of the comics, but that just wasn't the way I'm taking in Marvel is through the movies, and I'm enjoying it very much. But sometimes when people are like, "Ooh, did you see this Easter egg?" That means I'm like, I don't know what that means.
So I read the comics a little bit, like way back in the day, and actually I do find nowadays after watching things on like a Marvel movie or TV show now, I will go to at least the Wikipedia page and find out how it played out in the comic books. I'm always kind of curious about that stuff, but not enough to actually pick up the comic books and read them. I'll just take the overview.
The way I'm seeing it, like the comic books were like just like this incredible pre-production for the movies. Like everything was storyboarded, you know, like beautifully. And the universe has been like pre-built for like 50 years or something like that.
I mean, some of the stuff in the comic books gets so crazy, and it seems like that corner of the MCU, like the Loki, Doctor Strange, WandaVision corner of the MCU, is about to go into that crazy territory. And also, the next Spider-Man movie, I guess, is supposed to kind of have something to do with the whole multiverse aspect of the MCU.
My takeaway is that it's all going that way now.
Yeah.
You know, everything's going to be like the multiverse, and man, Chaos Town, USA. I'm wondering what they're going to do with like Doctor Strange and you know all this. And then also they're bringing in Kevin Feige, man. Like, way to plan out and execute something that is both compelling, interesting, fun, you know, and keeps going. And just like the way he's like, kind of like that Abrams moment where he created, you know, the Kelvin timeline. It's like good thinking. There you go. You can keep it going and have it be, you know, fun and original and all that stuff. But also you can adhere to as much of the canon as you want or not, you know. And now, like, you know, if someone's not available to play, you know, like Wolverine, like Hugh Jackman's probably not going to come back as Wolverine once they bring the X-Men into the MCU.
I doubt it.
And all these properties, right? That will be brought back in eventually. But you don't have to really worry about that because you can just get Wolverine from another dimension.
Yeah. And apparently that's like kind of the way the comic books have been existing this whole time, is that like every 20 or 30 years they'll basically start again, you know, give the characters a new origin story or at least a slight variation on it. You know, they'll update the characters for the modern time, but because they understand they have fans of like the older iterations, they just call it a new universe. And I think that's how you end up with like, you know, Ultimate Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. You know, it's like they're the same character in new universes, but basically it's like they're just rebranding every few decades and using the multiverse to explain that away. But then they'll do the thing like I think they're leading to in the movies, where, you know, the versions of the characters from the other dimensions will fight together or against each other or whatever. Yeah.
Or as people like me call it, Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, but fine, that's good.
Yeah, or people like me call it, remember that episode of Star Trek?
Sure. Yep. Yeah. Just a Spock with a goatee.
Yeah, exactly. How did you know he was evil? Well, he had a goatee.
Goatee. Did you ever watch Community?
I've seen a handful of episodes, but I never like watched it.
See, that's a show that I think that you would really, really, really like because they so pay attention to. I mean, the show, from one perspective, like when you first like come to it, it would be seemingly about these characters, but as it goes on, you realize that the show is actually about and centers around this character named Abed, who just has like a brilliant mind. And yeah, I really think, sincerely, that this is a program that if you delved into this show and like gave it, just got on a regular watching regimen, you'd be like me at the end of it, like, I wish there was more episodes of that. Too bad it's gone. Which brings me to today's topic, Jones. So for the listeners, Jones was gracious enough to meet me here without knowing what I wanted to speak about today.
My Pro Tools session is labeled mystery subject.
Yeah, very good. Very good. But I appreciate the trust. Could have been walking into a bear trap here.
That's true. I might still be.
No. I mean, yes and no. So the question, Zach, whereas you and I have such fully aligned tastes when it comes to all things movie, music, television. I mean, our Venn diagram, our circles overlap, I would say 95%. Does that seem fair?
That seems very fair.
Yet, I feel like for at least the past year, if not longer, at least the past year that we've been doing this show together, I have repeatedly pleaded with you to please watch Parks and Recreation. To please watch it. Like, my God, please watch it. And now, this is a show to give you my own background on the show. I didn't watch it when it came out because, to me, it looked like, this is like just another version of The Office, and I didn't watch The Office when it came out either because I had watched the original Office, and it made me so uncomfortable that I was like, nah, I'm good. I even think like I kind of stepped to the American Office, and I saw that it must have been like first season because like Michael Scott's character was still quite cruel in that. But they finally, I feel like they made a good adjustment, which brought him over to, very clear that he was being cruel by accident because he's a moron, yeah, so I've my wife pleaded with me. She's like, I really think you'll like this show. I was like, fine. And I sat down, I watched it, and I absolutely fell in love with the whole program. I think that I can say that if I had to choose one sitcom, that kind of style of comedy programming, it would be Parks and Rec because it's such a complete picture. The jokes are incredible. It's almost Arrested Development level, kind of universe building. Self-referential. They'll set something up in season 2 that doesn't come to fruition, or they revisit in season 4, and and I love that about it. And I was watching it, actually I finished watching Loki, and the wife just grabbed the remote and fired on Parks and Rec, and I was like, yes, I'm so psyched to be watching this again. And then it occurred to me, I was like, why the fuck hasn't Zach Jones watched this program? So what I'd like to do is really sell you on it today.
Okay.
Because I'm also not one of these people. One thing that I really, really dislike is if someone's like, oh, have you heard of the new album? And you're like, oh, I never heard that before. Oh, really? It's like, oh, fuck you.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh, really? Oh, you don't know that thing? Oh, well, I get it. It's maybe it's for acquired taste or whatever. And that, yeah, that kind of attitude makes me strangling mad. But I just don't have, when I come across something that if you hadn't heard Magical Mystery Tour by the Beatles for some reason, I wouldn't be like, oh, really? I mean, I would be like, really, because it's I know what a big Beatles fan you are, but if you hadn't, I'd be like, oh man, get in there. It's there's this whole thing waiting for you that was built for you that you're gonna love. And I feel this way about Parks and Recreation, and I thought well, my intention the whole time was rather, I don't want to berate you about it because I know that it's not like a person. I'm not taking it personally or anything. I just feel like you just haven't stepped to it yet. Is that correct?
I have not, but I'm not opposed to it, or I'm not feeling like, I wish Spencer would stop pressuring me about Parks and Rec. I'm purposely not going to watch it because he's shoving it in my face.
Right.
I mean, I think it's more of just, there's 7 seasons of it, which is awesome. When I get into it, I'll be psyched there's 7 seasons.
That's right.
But now I'm just like, that's not 2.5 hours. Or in the case of never having heard Magical Mystery Tour, 32 minutes or whatever.
Sure.
I could listen to Magical Mystery Tour however many times over the course that it takes to, watch 7 seasons worth of a sitcom.
Right. Times 20 divided by...
Crunch the numbers.
Yeah. So we're looking at 51 hours of programming, roughly.
So I mean, that's
if you think,
almost 100 spins of Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah, but that's just like it's a strong work week if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe there's a bit of like a opportunity missed on account of we just had like the past year on complete hold.
Yeah, that really would have been the time to
that was
sit down and take in a TV show.
But I watched it last night, and if you are a fan of the show, it's the hunting episode, the Hunting Lodge, and it had me many times. And this is rare. I find in a sitcom style comedy program where you actually are like laughing out loud, like guffaw, you know what I mean, like slapping your knee, and you have to pause it and just like because you're missing jokes. Mm-hmm. There's only been a handful of shows that really do that for me. And this is one of them. The Office has occasionally done that, and Arrested Development is another one. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think Arrested Development in a lot of ways could be held as the gold standard of television comedy. Maybe you'd put Cheers up there. Maybe Seinfeld would go up there. Golden Girls, maybe. But it's just top tier writing and execution. And one of the things I love about Parks and Recreation, and I think that you will relate to the most about it, is that like our beloved Star Trek, TOS, and even Next Generation, you have your characters in the show that are so fully developed that they don't stray from their core values just for the convenience of plot. In fact, the plot is written around what would this person do, this fully developed person that we've created, fictional person. Mm-hmm. But what would they do when it comes, to certain situations? Because everyone acts on according to their moral fiber in the show, and they never leave that. Right. Mm-hmm. So if I may read from Wikipedia, which I know this is boring, probably, but
I do it all the time. So
Wikipedia, right? So
you've got an
Parks
audience
and
of one that's into it.
That's right. Parks and Recreation, also known as Parks and Rec, an American political satire mockumentary sitcom television series created by Greg Daniels and Michael Schur. So those two people were involved in The Office, which they'll probably get into. The series aired on NBC from April 9, 2009 to February 24, 2015 for 125 episodes over 7 seasons. A special reunion episode aired during the pandemic on April 30th, 2020, which is pretty awesome. They did it like a Zoom meeting. So it played like actually it was like an episode of Parks and Rec that took place during a pandemic. It was pretty great. The series stars Amy Poehler as Leslie Knope. Amy Poehler is a brilliant comedian, as we all well know. A perky, mid-level bureaucrat in the Parks and Rec department of Pawnee, Indiana, in the fictional town of Indiana. The ensemble and supporting cast features the following. I mean, these people were either a known quantity going into it, like Amy Poehler, or because of it, right? Rashida Jones as Ann Perkins. That's Leslie Knope's bestie. Paul Schneider as Mark Brandanowitz, and he's only on for like a season or two and kind of goes away. I was kind of wondering why last night. Because the season I watched last night, or I was watching last night, he was in it, and he's very good. Aziz Ansari as Tom Haverford, who's kind of like this lovable dipshit, who's like into like, he's always into like, you know, cologne and, you know, he's kind of a bro. He's definitely a bro, but like he's also like lovable. He's got like, at the end of the day, he's got a heart of gold. Mm-hmm. Nick Offerman is Ron Swanson, and we're going to circle back on this. Aubrey Plaza as April Ludgate, and I would say Aubrey Plaza is one of the best at actors to utilize deadpan, dryness, and sarcasm. But arguably, we could say that Bob Newhart really like paved the way for that in a way, mm-hmm. and she's champion level. Plays the irony card in an incredible way. Chris Pratt, of course, we know from speaking of the MCU, right? He plays Andy Dwyer, who is an idiot. Adam Scott as Ben Wyatt. You might know him. I think was it Step Brothers, the fucking Catalina wine mixer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. And Rob Lowe comes in, I think in season 3 as Chris Traeger, and yeah, he's like kind of like the head of the department. Super positive, super healthy. You know, just says it like, you know, Ann Perkins. Jim O'Heir plays Gary, quote, Jerry Gergich, a character that the whole office dismisses so much that they change his name as the series goes on. Like, they call him different names. And he just rolls with it. Retta plays Donna Meagle. And Billy Eichner was in a later season as, I forget who left. Ann Perkins left. He kind of came in to fill that space a little bit. Somebody else might have left too. I can't remember. Like any series, the first season was kind of like, not janky, but they didn't quite have their footing. Mm-hmm. They did some major kind of like reimagining and rewriting of characters. And I would say from season 2 on, everything's like locked down and just progresses from there, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's just about where these people's lives take them. But effectively, it's the day in, day out of working in public service in a small town, you know, Pawnee, Indiana, which is next door to like the snottier, richer town, Eagleton. So they're always like getting like kind of beat down and dismissed, and you know, Pawnee's always like considered the trashier side of things, mm-hmm. and like the, you know,
it's like the Simpsons with their Springfield Shelbyville relationship. Exactly. Or like here in Portland, it would be like Portland versus Cape Elizabeth or something, or Sopo versus Cape Elizabeth. The one character that they nailed from word one, moment one, is Nick Offerman is Ron Swanson. And the reason I think it's so successful is because his character is funny out of the gate before he even says a word. It's kind of more like, it reminds me more of like Monty Python style writing, mm-hmm. where like just the definition of the character is already a joke. And he is a libertarian who hates government and doesn't like government, who works for the government. And so he's always sabotage it. He will often hire people, April Ludgate, for instance, to work posts, knowing full well that they'll be unsuccessful at it, even if not just like outright terrible at it. And he wants nothing more from the government that he works for to fail. To which point he'll even like, if he took a phone call one day, right? And he's like, oh, there's a pothole in my road. He's just like, ugh. And he just like puts some tar in the back of his car and goes over and just fixes it. You know, like, well, I don't know why we need to engage people, you know. And what's awesome about Ron Swanson is that he's super gruff. He's always the gruff one, but he's also the one who always pulls through and shows that he really, really does care about his people very much. Mm-hmm. And the relationship between he and Leslie Knope is it's just downright precious, the two of them, you know, because she's so like
let's go. She's always got like these binders and binders of things, like to-do lists. She's like super motivated, like barely sleeps. Like she rolls in, and like there's the episode I was watching yesterday. She is unable to be on site for this particular job. And they're like, it's just best if you just go chill. We'll deal with it. And they all like she print out her to-do list, and they're divvying it up between 10 people, and they're all like, oh my god, like how am I going to do all of this? Yeah. But she does the work of a zillion people. Ann Perkins is a nurse. So Andy Dwyer and Ann Perkins are boyfriend and girlfriend at the top of the show, and then they break up. And she's the only character who doesn't actually like work at Parks and Rec. And Andy Dwyer is actually the shoe shiner in the hallway. April Ludgate ends up being Ron Swanson's assistant, which is hilarious because she puts no phone calls through to him. He has a forward-facing grenade at like landmine on his desk, facing his his chair. The people sit in. It's just face towards enemy. He also has on one side of his desk one of those iron cross things like that were on Normandy Beach. That would like tank stoppers.
Yeah,
just to make traversing more difficult. And I thought maybe you would like to hear some Ron. I found a really nice list of famous Ron Swanson quotes.
I feel like even having never seen the show, I've seen lots of memes of Ron Swanson. So I wouldn't even be surprised if I have not even at least read some of these quotes already, but please, go on.
Yeah, he's like, so Nick Offerman's kind of, and I mean this with the utmost respect. I don't mean to say he doesn't have depth or whatever, but like Nick Offerman's kind of a one-note song, but the song is so fucking awesome that I want him to sing it forever. It's like one of the best tunes, and it's just the perfect melt. Like they found the right person for the character, kind of like Kramer, right? Like, can you imagine anybody else in that role but Michael Richards?
Absolutely not.
No. Yeah, they define it. So, and I want to point out that like he stands out to me in a cast that is incredible. Like he's played opposite Amy Poehler, who's like one of my favorites. She's incredible, and she carries the show. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, they all carried it at some point. So I don't mean to like be dismissive of Amy Poehler's like contribution, because it's equal, and if not at times more, because she's the show centers around her, right? She's the hub. But man, Swanson. Quotes. And I'll try to do my best Ron Swanson just to give it some context. There's only one thing I hate more than lying: skim milk, which is water that's lying about being milk. Very good. The less I know about other people's affairs, the happier I am. I'm not interested in caring about people. I once worked with a guy for 3 years and never learned his name. Best friend I ever had. We still never talk sometimes. Dear frozen yogurt, you are the celery of desserts. Be ice cream or be nothing. Fishing relaxes me. It's like yoga, except I get to kill something. When I eat, it is the food that is scared. Is it in reference to some questionable food? At the diner, there's like a kind of like a restaurant that plays a central role as like a meeting place. Just give me, what would you like? Just give me all the bacon and eggs you have. And the waiter like starts to walk away. He's like, wait, I worry that what you heard was give me a lot of bacon and eggs. What I said was give me all the bacon and eggs you have. Do you understand? In reference to crying, I've cried twice in my life. Once when I was 7 and hit by a school bus, and then again when I heard that little Sebastian had passed. So little Sebastian is a small horse that everybody loves for some reason. Even Ron Swanson, everyone loves this tiny horse. Yeah, let me see. He does refer to his favorite food is shrimp wrapped in bacon, which is funny to me because it's also one off from like the I feel like scallops and bacon are like the
the usual
the most
go-to.
something. Yeah, he calls it his. I think it's his number one food wrapped in his number two favorite food. Let's see what else we got here. Any dog under 50 pounds is a cat, and cats are useless. I regret nothing. The end. Where are we at here? Oh, he's a big whiskey drinker. In fact, Lagavulin specifically. Clear alcohols are for rich women on diets. Crying, acceptable at funerals in the Grand Canyon. There are 3 acceptable haircuts: high and tight, crew cut, and buzz cut.
All the same thing.
It's so good. When I walked in this morning and saw the flag at half-mast, I thought, all right, another bureaucrat ate it. There's only one bad word: taxes. Great job, everyone. The reception will be held at each of our houses. Great job. The reception will be held at each of our individual houses alone.
Not I'm leaving, but all of you have to leave too.
Yeah, we're all leaving.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, on bowling. Straight down the middle, no hook, no spin, no fuss. Anything more, and this becomes figure skating. I'd rather bleed out than sit here and talk about my feelings for 10 minutes. He buys all of his food at basically the dollar store. This is called Food and Stuff. I think he's buying these questionable steaks. He is, like, at one point coerced into going into a strip club, which is not his scene, and decides that he loves it because they have an all-you-can-eat breakfast buffet. He looks over, he's like, hello, beautiful. The camera pans over. It's a breakfast buffet in a strip club, like, ugh. Yeah, so, like, the way he is gruff and, like, he's kind of like the Ed Asner character in Mary Tyler Moore show. Mm-hmm. Does that ring a bell for you?
It does.
Or Maude in the show Maude, or even B. Arthur's character in Golden Girls too. You could say the same thing. She's like this grumpy, staunch, unapologetic, resistant to the groupthink. Not down for whatever, not one to suffer fools gladly, but at the end of the day, they have these huge hearts, and like they pull through in like incredibly meaningful ways, like saving the day kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, what's great about the writing in Parks and Rec, oftentimes when you don't think that they would, but then every time that happens, you kind of like look back on the Ron Swanson character, and it's like, wow, they really nailed this guy from Jump Street. Like when he does like start a family. Oh man, he's just super. You can picture what he looks like, right?
Yeah.
There's this. He was married to 2 women, each named Tammy. Tammy 1 and Tammy 2. And Tammy 2 is played by his actual real life wife, Megan Mullany. I think I have her last name right, from Will and Grace, right? And she's just this terrible, terrible person who tortures him and his coworkers, but he will not. Basically his rule is like, lock me up if she's around. Like, I can't control myself, and she's the worst thing for me. He knows it, but he's powerless around her. And oh man, he falls off the wagon a couple times with Tammy, and it's unbelievable how far he will go. Nick Offerman will go in order, with his character, as far as like appearances and shaving of hair and things. Like he really jumps in both feet. Yeah, I mean, the best way to do it in a way, is to like watch the. You could find like Ron Swanson quotes. Like, I'm not doing it really any justice by reading them. Plus you like kind of lose the context, and a lot of it is just like his delivery is so forthright and dry and commanding that he's just saying this oftentimes just utterly ridiculous shit, but you're like you buy it. But then he's also sometimes you're like, yeah, like I kind of agree with that. Like, wait a minute, am I a libertarian? I'm not, but like there's a lot of his character that just like plain makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's all about just making sense. At one point, discovers he has a baby, and he discovers that the third floor, whatever the floor up from where they are, is unoccupied and dilapidated, and he's just trying to find a place where his like child can kind of like rest, and they can have some peace and quiet. So he actually just like takes it upon himself to refurbish the whole floor himself for fun, even though, and meanwhile, his job isn't being done downstairs. Yeah, it's just like, he's kind of like, has this like super, like I said, gruff man's man thing. But if it were just that, it wouldn't be funny. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's really so much more than that. And, I think it's a great show. And I also want, before I open it up to any questions and discussion, Parks and Rec also, for my money, I'm going to give it the best television show theme song of all time.
Ooh, wow.
It's the one that I never skip.
Wow.
How about that shit?
Well, that's a good time.
Oh man, like the presentation of that theme song, like it's what is this, 1962? It could be. And the way the theme is written is so smart. It's so smart. It sounds great. It's a great recording too. But harmonically, like there's shit going on there that is way above my pay grade. But and I listen to it every time because I'm trying to figure out, like, I'll close my eyes, like, where are they going? Like, what? I'm looking at it on the keyboard. You know what I mean? Like, I can kind of like figure out the beginning. I know where I'm at, but then it just keeps twisting, and the key changes, and the way that was the extended version, which is, doesn't happen every time. Mm-hmm. And when it does, it's like, yes, it's the full one. Yeah.
Have you ever sat down at a keyboard and tried to deconstruct it?
No, it's still like a mystery to me. I should do that. In fact, I don't know, maybe we should learn it for the band.
There you go. Yeah.
That'd be really fun. It has some really bananas chord changes in it. It's really, really smart.
It'll also make fans of the show come up and talk to me about it afterwards, and then
that's right.
I'll feel bad that I haven't seen it again.
Yeah, and celebrate. We're gonna play this this theme song every show until Zach Jones finally watches it. Have you seen it? No, but you play the theme song.
Didn't Jones
live
used to play in your band? What happened?
In front of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, are there any? I mean, have I left any holes? Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I guess I don't have any specific questions, but I'm just trying to think about, like, in my history of TV watching. I remember I kind of started watching 30 Rock by mistake back in the day. Mm-hmm. I caught an episode of it, and I may have been with you when I caught my first episode of it. And it was the Tracy Jordan's Meat Machine episode. And I remember laughing incredibly hard the entire time and immediately being hooked on the show. Mm-hmm. And I think around that, pretty shortly afterwards, I think, is when Parks and Rec started, or maybe it started right at the same time. I'm not sure.
I think there's a little crossover, honestly. I think. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and good for you for bringing up 30 Rock, another show that I would put in the top 10 best of all time.
Because I always think of, Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, to me, are like, two sides of the same coin. But I don't know. 30 Rock felt like Tina Fey kind of stepping out on her own after her time at Saturday Night Live, and then like I don't know. I'd have to check, but I feel like 30 Rock maybe ran for a season or two before Parks and Rec started, and I don't know why I thought maybe Amy Poehler was like the creator of the show or something like that. But it also kind of just seemed like, oh, Amy Poehler's doing what Tina Fey is doing, but not with Tina Fey anymore. And I think I caught a couple episodes of Parks and Rec early on, and it just didn't latch me in. But then it is one of those things that over time people have been like, you've got to watch it. It's hilarious. And actually the same exact thing happened to me with The Office too. Like I am a big fan of Ricky Gervais, so I loved The British Office.
Me too.
And I also loved how
I love him. It just makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. He excels at uncomfortable comedy.
He's incredible at it.
Yeah. But you know, I also love how compact the original Office is, and same thing for his other shows like Extras and Derek and even Afterlife, the one he's doing now. But yeah, I remember The American Office started, and I was interested, and then I watched the first episode, and it was literally the exact same script as the first episode of The British Office. And then I was kind of turned off from that and never went back. And there was the same thing over the years. People have been like, I can't believe you haven't watched The Office. But there's just so much of it now. There's so much Parks and Rec. There's so much of The Office. I just... and I guess my other thing is that when I get into a TV show, I fully commit.
I know.
Part of it is me like, you know, am I ready for this yet? If I commit to a 7-season TV show, I'm probably going to rock through that in 3 days tops. You know, like,
yeah, you're managing your time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I do the same thing. Like,
it's because I have once I push the button, I have no self-control. Like once I'm in, I'm in, and that's it. And it's one of those things where, you know, maybe it's like, I got to learn these songs for this gig. One more episode. Oh no! All of a sudden it's midnight, and I never practiced. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like with Lost. I can't justify committing to it because by all accounts, the ending sucks, right? And people are like, well, it's more about the journey. I'm like, yeah, but I've watched a couple episodes. It seems like the whole journey is what is happening. And if it gets to the end and they're explaining what is happening and it sucks, then I'm good.
So I watched all of Lost, and part of that is when I think it was still on, and it was like, you know, everybody was raving about it. And one of our friends had the first 3 seasons. I think it was 3. Maybe it was the first 2 seasons on DVD. And so I just did the thing where I watched the first couple seasons and got caught up to where it was happening in real time, and then watched an episode a week. And seriously, that show is diminishing returns throughout its whole run. Starts strong and just it's a straight downhill trip the whole time. And then, and then ends terribly. So I would not recommend Lost, but I did actually watch that what was happening.
I appreciate it, and I won't watch it.
Yeah, and I also think that's another thing that like turned me off on a lot of these serialized TV shows. And I know Parks and Rec is a comedy, so it's different. You know, I'm sure each episode brings unique laughs, but yeah, there's a lot of these serialized shows where I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to commit to that, because it's like, you know, you always get these filler episodes in the middle of the seasons, and then if it ends poorly, it's like, why did I could have watched some classic movie from the 60s that I haven't seen still. You know, like, why did I watch 3 horrible episodes of Lost in a row and not do what I needed to do? You know? So
to go back to your comparison to 30 Rock, it's actually fair and not entirely incorrect, although it had never occurred to me that to compare the two, because I love both of these shows, and you know you have Tina Fey trying to run a television studio, and you have Leslie Knope trying to run small government, and that's kind of where the similarities end. Aside from their just being like associated so deeply, like they're like, you know, Newman and Redford, right? You almost mention them in the same breath. Ernie and Bert, Lennon McCartney. I could go on, but
her character is very, very completely different than Liz Lemon. Leslie Knope is wired completely different motivations. Almost zero self-deprecation, where I feel like Tina Fey kind of swims in that a little bit in a great way. And another great thing about the show is all of the characters are so fully developed that they can go off on these other tangents, and side characters can carry whole shows or whole subplots and everything. And it's not lame or disinteresting.
Are there?
It all does. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, are there any characters that, when they get a feature episode, you're just like, oh, okay, whatever. Like,
No. I no. They have a couple of characters that like I don't like that are like side, like third tier down, kind of like regulars. One of them played by Ben Schwartz. He plays this guy named John Ralphio Saperstein, who's just like this smarmy. You're not supposed to like him, and I don't. You know what I mean? But it's where like I don't turn it off because it's all part of. You're not supposed to like this character, so it's working. But as far as like the only character on the show that I felt like really didn't find their place was when they did bring Billy Eichner in. Are you familiar with him?
I've seen little bits and pieces of his Billy on the Street thing,
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, such bravery, you know. Not as like politically motivated, but it has like that Sacha Baron Cohen level of like, wow, you are fearless. You know. But yeah, like the character kind of took that kind of like, oh my God, you know, like the what's wrong with you? That when he like flips his shit and loses his temper, kind of became all of the character or too much of the character. You know what I mean? You didn't like there just wasn't enough like depth there. Although by the end of the season, or maybe he was on like 2 seasons, by the end of it, you're there with him. They did get there, but it took a minute to get there. It was just like a little bit weird to bring in such a big new character and such an established cast, you know, what I imagine Eagles fans felt when Joe Walsh was brought in. I don't know. Although Joe Walsh undoubtedly made the Eagles good as opposed to bad, which is what they are as a whole. IMO.
Wait a minute.
DM me later. Don't like the Eagles. But Parks and Rec, if you get through season 1, which is again like still getting their footing, there aren't any episodes in season 1 that are bad, but I could see if you sat down and watched episode 1 of Parks and Rec, you might be like, I don't know. But I suggest sticking through it because like there's enough character development and different like little plot points that are referenced throughout the rest of the show that it's worth watching.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not a waste of time. And I was told this, and I sat down, I powered through. It wasn't altogether unpleasant or anything. It wasn't just like the worst. But it's like once it hits season 2 and on, it is straight gold, until which point it starts to come like unraveled a bit at the end when they're trying to wrap everything up, you know? And even then it's still very, very good. So like, you know, your worst episode in Parks and Rec is 3 out of 5 stars, which is not bad.
No, not bad.
Like there's no turds. So with that said, that's I you know, I'm not sure what else to say except that I have a really good feel for what you like in a program, what you like in characters, and what you find funny. And I would also say this: we watched that episode of 30 Rock with the what was it? The meat
Tracy Jordan's Meat Machine.
Tracy Jordan's Meat Machine. That I feel like that's kind of dropping in on like a fantastic episode, right? But because you already liked it, you could go back and watch it. But I think like any show, 30 Rock had its own like at the beginning too, right? Like any show does, or any new property, band, whatever it is. And you know, maybe if you had dropped in initially on Jerry Has a Fart Attack, you know, you know what I mean? It would have been like a different story for you because like that's an example, a rare example, and I love it of me having to just to stop the television program and just breathe, just stop laughing because I was going to pass out from laughing. And it's there's so many moments in the show. And it's also a perfect mix of hilarious, outright one of the funniest shows going, one of the best acted shows, multiple Emmy awards won, multiple nominations, Golden Globes were won, made the tops of lists, all this kind of thing in real time. But it also has a ton of heart, and you really give a shit about each character too. So there are moments of like really big heart in there. And I think my favorite comedies have always treaded that line in between, you know, funny, yes, slapstick, great, but also there's enough emotional depth there that, like, you know, you can kind of like get a little choked up, like, oh my goodness, my friends, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like for me is like,
I think
when the show ended, is like, I don't get to hang out with my friends anymore.
that was kind of one of my favorite things during the early Simpsons run, back when I used to watch every episode. I remember, like, in particular, the Lisa-based episodes were the ones where when they started, I'd be like, oh, you know, because the Lisa-based episodes were always the ones that they dealt with an issue or feelings and stuff. So I remember, like, having that feeling that, you know, once they established that's what it was going to be, being like, whatever. But then some of the best episodes are the Lisa-based episodes because of that. It was the same thing, like, you know, when Lisa needs braces, like that whole one where there's like they're picketing the power plant for a dental plan, or the one where Homer, like, you know, has to get her a new saxophone. You know, it's the saxophone one. Like, it's all like, yeah, there's so much heart that you wouldn't expect from like that dumb comedy. That I think I haven't watched The Simpsons in 2 decades now, but at least that first decade run, like, there was a lot of heart to it in it, as well as just hilarity. And it kind of sounds like that's what you're describing here in Parks and Rec.
It really is. It's just such a good-hearted show. That's another thing too. Like, even when there's pessimism, there's jokes at other characters' expense for sure, but at the middle of it, there's always a ton of heart to the show, and it's not a cruel show, you know. It's not shocking. It's just sincerely funny. Good old-fashioned wholesome jokes. A true American treasure. In fact, another thing that I'll say is I think that the Ron Swanson character is one of the greatest fictional characters or characters in American fiction. Period. It's just so good.
I think also, that was like, you know, a style of comedy for an era where I believe Parks and Rec and Community and 30 Rock, and there might be something else I'm forgetting in there. Oh, and The Office and a few other things that were like, felt like very similar style programs were running, if not concurrently, pretty close to it. And during that era, I think I just kind of, because I was so sold on 30 Rock initially, that was just the one that I picked to commit to, and then have not gone back to any of the other ones yet.
No, I get it. But I think it's also true that there just happened to be simultaneously broadcast several of the greatest shows that ever happened.
That's what it sounds like.
It's a golden era for sure, and it's I get why you know, not picking teams necessarily, but like, you know, choosing to focus. And if you open your heart up to Parks and Rec in the same way that you did with 30 Rock, I'm sure that it will bless you as it has blessed me.
Praise Jeebus.
Praise Jeebus.
Yeah. Well, I will. There will come a day where I'll show up and be like, "Hey, guess what I did the past 2 days? Watched all of the shows that you recommended." We've also,
how many quotes we can have together.
That's true. You know, we've also, like, I don't know if on this show or just in one of the many other conversations we have is that I'm definitely planted more in movie world than TV world. So I think and I think that's like one of the reasons why when I'm ready to watch TV, I'm just like, okay, I'll just pick a random episode of Star Trek. You know, I've got an hour to kill.
I'm a big rewatcher
Yeah.
of comfort properties for sure. And I would do the same thing, but also it's nice to have a television show that you can kind of like, if you don't have the, like, I don't know if I'm down for a whole movie. Jump into, it's 22 minutes a pop. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I find like, I don't know if I want to watch a movie, especially like with Parks and Rec or anything like it where I really dig in. It's like, I'm not down for a 2-hour movie. Fast forward 4.5 hours and I'm still watching Parks and Rec, And it's one of those where the episode I watched last night is this great gag that carried over into the next episode, where in this episode, whatever, 1, Ron Swanson suffers a head injury, which requires the back of his head to be shaved, but just the back of his head.
Yeah.
And then in the following episode, it's, an appropriate amount of hair growth back, but it's still like he actually like shaved his head for it. But they just let that kind of stuff play out. There's jokes on jokes, and on rewatching, I'm seeing things I never saw before. Because it's just so, like 30 Rock, it's the same way. It's so densely written. So anyway, so I'll stop badgering you about it, and you'll speak about it if and when you're ready.
Yeah.
But I'll probably badger you about it.
You'll know that I've been watching it because I'm sure, because as I said, that will be all that I watch for those few days.
Right.
So.
We'll lose you. Where's Zach?
Yeah.
All right, let's go out on that theme song one more time.
SAZETU is brought to you by Maine Spirits. Learn more about the spirits they bring into the state of Maine at mainspirits.com, and what to do with them by downloading their app for your smartphone, or visit them on Instagram at Maine_spirits. Promotional consideration provided by State Theatre Portland. Learn more at statetheatreportland.com. And Sun Tiki Studios. Learn more at suntikistudios.com.